Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another grand and glorious session of the Quran and its tafsir with Abdurrahman and Abdullah.
Now, before I start with Surah Al-Muzzammil, I will first recite it and then I will go on with the tafsir of it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا واصبر على ما يقولون واهجرهم هجرا جميلا وذرني والمكذبين أولي النعمة ومهلهم قليلا إن لدينا أنكالا وجحيما وطعاما ذا غصة وعذابا أليما يوم ترجف الأرض والجبال وكانت الجبال كثيبا مهيلا إنا أرسلنا إليكم رسولا شهيدا عليكم كما أرسلنا إلى فرعون رسولا فعصى فرعون الرسول فأخذناه أخذا وبيلا فكيف تتقون إن كفرتم يوما يجعل الولدان شيبا السماء منفطر به كان وعده مفعولا إن هذه تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه وطائفة من الذين معك والله يقدر الليل والنهار علم أن لن تحصوه فتاب عليكم فاقرؤوا ما تيسر من القرآن علم أن سيكون منكم مرضى وآخرون يضربون في الأرض يبتغون من فضل الله وآخرون يقاتلون في سبيل الله فاقرؤوا ما تيسر منه وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله هو خيرا وأعظم أجرا واستغفروا الله إن الله غفور رحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي زدني علما آمين يا رب العالمين. So today, inshallah, we will start off with Surah Al-Muzzammil, which is also closely related to the previous surah, which is Surah Al-Muddathir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts the surah off directly talking to the Prophet saying, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, oh you wrapped in your clothes. In Surah Muddathir, we see the exact same beginning. We see Ya ayyuhal, not muzammil, but muddathir. So there should be a difference between these two, because Ya ayyuhal muzammil means, oh you wrapped in your clothes or in a blanket. And Ya ayyuhal muddathir means, oh you wrapped in your clothes, or the shouldered one, as they say. So the difference between these two is that we think of it from the beginning of the revelation. Surah Muddathir came first. When the Prophet ﷺ saw Angel Jibreel saying Iqra, he ran back. He ran back to his home, to his wife Khadija, and he said, cover me, cover me. So is the Prophet ﷺ in comfort, or is he scared of, as if right now? The Prophet ﷺ is scared. He is frightened of what he has just seen. So Al-Muddathir is not so convenient. It's more scary. So when you see something, you would run somewhere and hide. So this is the exact same thing. Al-Muddathir, the Prophet ﷺ ran, and he was hiding under a blanket or a sheet. So the Prophet ﷺ was not in comfort. But as over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, like the one who has wrapped himself in clothes. So over here, the Prophet ﷺ has calmed down a little after what he has just seen. So Ya ayyuhal muzammil, it's probably like in the way how you go to sleep, you would take your blanket over you, you would be in comfort. You would not be scared. So this is the same way the Prophet ﷺ was in comfort as of right now. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, and stand up in the night except إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, a little. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُم, he says it as fi'al amr. He doesn't say as a different past tense or present tense. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly says it as a command tense. He says, stand all night and pray except a little. So at the beginning, the Prophet ﷺ only had a few surahs that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down to him, like Surah Fatiha, Surah Muzzammil, Surah Muddathir, and not even the whole surahs. Surah Fatiha, he had the whole thing. Surah Muzzammil, he only had a short piece of it. Surah Muddathir, he had a short piece of it. Surah Alaq he had, and some other surahs. So the Prophet ﷺ would only have these certain surahs. So قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, and at that time, the Prophet ﷺ did not have Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. He did not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the daytime. Instead, he would go preach. He would occupy that time in different things. And then at the night, he would come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he would do tahajjud prayers. So at that time, you might be thinking tahajjud prayers, oh, this is before Fajr or after Isha, sometime between this. Yes, this is the proper time. The Prophet ﷺ actually did not do this as a sunan. He actually did it because it was a fard. The Prophet ﷺ only prayed during this time. So this was like his only fard prayer that he would actually have. And the Prophet ﷺ only had a few surahs to read. So why am I mentioning this again? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the importance of this. In the next ayahs, he talks about nisfahu aw inqus minhu qalila. He talks about some of the details of when to pray. He says nisfah, or half the night, or aw inqus minhu qalila, or a little less than that less. So 1/3 or 1/4. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا, or a little more, and recite the Quran وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا, in a proper way, in a rhythmic recitation, or in a slow voice. So the Prophet ﷺ only had these few chapters in which I have mentioned. So the Prophet ﷺ had to read them slowly. So because he did not have anything else, so he had to keep repeating these same chapters again and again and again. He did not have Surah Baqarah or Surah Al Imran where he could just occupy his time with that. He only had these small chapters where he had to keep repeating them. So this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding the Prophet ﷺ to read the Quran in a beautiful way, read the Quran in a slow way. Because the Prophet ﷺ did not have that many revelations of the Quran yet, and he did not have enough revelations to read it fast. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna sanulqi alayka qawlan thaqila. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assures him that yes, there will be more coming. He says, Inna sanulqi, and indeed we will send down, we will cast upon you a heavy word. So this is probably the Quran or some other revelation that which is most likely the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is assuring the Prophet ﷺ that you will indeed get more revelation, but for now you have this. إن شانية الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, and indeed at the rising of the night, it is very hard, which is more impactful, more suitable for what? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? وَأَقْوَمُ قِيلًا, for the recitation of the word, for a word which is the Quran. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so this can be also directed to me and you, saying that we should recite the Quran at this time, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that it is hard to do, but because it is hard to do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it wata'an wa aqwamu qila, that you will get more ajr, you will get more blessings for reading Quran at this time. Inna laka fin nahari sabahan tawila. Because why in the day? Because in the day you are busy with the other worldly duties. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says sabahan, and we know sabahan comes from sabaha, which is swimming. When you swim, can you stop swimming? If you stop swimming, what will happen? You will fall down into the water. So you have to keep going. This is the exact same way you can apply this. So sabahan, you have to keep doing this work. You do not have an option, or else you will fall down. So this is this occupation that you have to keep going with it, or else you will fall down. And I'm not talking about the prophethood or what the Prophet ﷺ was doing at the night. I'm talking about what he was doing at the daytime, what is keeping him busy at the day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in ayah 8, وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. And remember, وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ, and that remember the name of your Lord and devote yourself to him, تَبْتِيلًا, with sincere devotion, with solemn devotion. رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقِ, why should you devote him? Why should you devote him? This is why, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ, that he is the Lord of your east and west and the whole globe. لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُ, La ilaha illahu, that there is no other God, no other ilah other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. فَاتَّخِذْهُ وَكِيلًا, take him as your disposer of your affairs. So we always hear tawakkul, have tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does this mean? That means you rely, you take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you rely your affairs with him. So you always have to keep your trust with this guardian, with wakila, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can help you at any time. So this is why we should have tawakkul on the wakila. وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَاهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. So the Prophet ﷺ's daily routine was to go out and preach. Preach what? The Quran, whatever he knew of it. He would teach whatever he knows from the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down, or other tips and tips that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. So he would go say these to his family members, particularly the Quraysh, and then what would he get back? We all know that he used to get insulted, and then he used to be embarrassed because of this. His own family members are treating him this way. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the only way that you will get out of this is that if you are patient. Patient over what? عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا, and avoid them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have just said وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُ and continued the ayah and go on to a different ayah. But he says وَهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا, and avoid them graciously. So what does this mean? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, even though they're giving you insults, even though they're making you feel bad, when they're done speaking and saying all the things that they needed to say, spread peace to them and then leave. Do not let them be angry and then leave. You have to let them be at somewhat a calm, stable position. And so this is, imagine how much power the Prophet ﷺ had to put in order to keep them in a good way. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَاصْبِرْ عَلَى مَا يَقُولُونَ وَاهْجُرْهُمْ هَجْرًا جَمِيلًا. What does he say next? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the section that he was talking to the Prophet ﷺ directly. Ayahs 1 through 10. After that, from ayahs 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts talking about that I have something ready for these people who are insulting you, and those who do not believe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَذَرْنِي وَالْمُكَذِّبِينَ أُولِي النَّعْمَةِ وَمَهِّلْهُمْ قَلِيلًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَذَرْنِي, and leave me and the deniers, the possessors, نعمة, with ease, وَمَهِّلْهُمْ قَلِيلًا, and allow them to respite a little. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that basically leave these people after you're done preaching them. Ulil ni'mah. We know that ni'mah and na'mah have a similar root. Ni'mah is ajr, but na'mah is easy. So ni'mah, you get it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with you, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will to give it. Na'mah is like the luxury life, the easy life. So for these people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَهِّلْهُمْ قَلِيلًا, that let them rest a little with this type of life. إِنَّ لَدَيْنَا أَنْكَالًا وَجَحِيمًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the punishment for them, the first punishment for them. He says, indeed, لَدَيْنَا, with us are shackles and a burning fire. وَطَعَامًا ذَا غُصَّةٍ وَعَذَابًا أَلِيمًا. And food, the second they bite on the food, they will start choking on that type of food. Ya Allah, protect us from all the punishments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for these type of people. Ameen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَطَعَامًا ذَا غُصَّةٍ, that when they eat the food, they would start choking on it. وَعَذَابًا أَلِيمًا, and at the same time, they would still be having the punishment. يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الْأَرْضُ وَالْجِبَالُ وَكَانَتِ الْجِبَالُ كَثِيبًا مَهِيلًا. And on that day when the earth will violently shake and the mountains will violently shake. And what will happen to the mountains? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and وَكَانَتِ الْجِبَالُ, and those mountains will become a heap of sand, a lobe of sand, just pouring down. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala crushed the mountains so much that it became nothing but a fine powder, and it will look like sand dunes. إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ رَسُولًا شَاهِدًا عَلَيْكُمْ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to these people now, to the deniers, He says, Inna, indeed we have sent down to you many messengers, that we have sent down messengers as a witness upon you. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? He gives an example of a person. He says about Fir'aun and Musa, كَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَى فِرْعَوْنَ رَسُولًا. He says, as if we have sent down Musa alayhi salam to Fir'aun as a messenger. But what happened with Fir'aun? فَعَصَى فِرْعَوْن, that Fir'aun disobeyed Musa alayhi salam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So فَعَصَى فِرْعَوْنَ الرَّسُولَ فَأَخَذْنَاهُ أَخْذًا وَبِيلًا. So Fir'aun denied Musa alayhi salam as a messenger, and then what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? He got him, he grabbed him, أخذنا, with a seizure, and wabila, and we made him into ruins. And we know that when Musa alayhi salam was escaping to a different land, he let go of his stick, and the entire sea went collapsing on Fir'aun and his army. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about, that we have seized him and we have done something gruesome with him. فعصى فرعون الرسول فأخذناه أخذا وبيلا فكيف تتقون. And then how among yourselves in kafartum, how will you protect yourself on that day? So we know that tattaqun comes somewhere around from taqwa, and we know taqwa is like the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But tattaqun over here will mean how will you guard yourselves? So we also have to guard our taqwa. So this is why it's also called taqwa. فَكَيْفَ تَتَّقُونَ, and how will you guard yourselves on that day when the mightiest army I have destroyed already, which is Fir'aun's army and himself. So he's asking the kuffar and the later generations to come, how will you guard yourselves against the punishments that I already have ready for you? And plus Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَوْمَ يَجْعَلُ الْوِلْدَانَ شِيبًا, and on that day the children will be having gray hair. So there are two options for this ayah interpretation. So some scholars have said that their hair will be gray because of the time period of the Day of Judgment, that it will be so long they will already have grown up into old men and women. And another translation of this ayah is that the children will have so much stress on them that they will just be having gray hair because of the stress. So this is the more preferred option, that the children will have gray hair because of the stress. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues with another sign of the day of judgment. السماء منفطر به كان وعده مفعولا. So منفطر, we can see this is also in Surah Infitar. إذا السماء انفطرت, and when the sky will be left cleft asunder, when it will break apart. Same thing over here. When the sky or the heaven will break apart therefrom, كان وعده مفعولا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will complete his promise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will fulfill his promise. So what is the promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making? Again, his promise is that the earth will shake, the mountains will become a lobe of sand, that he already prepared a bunch of punishments for the disbelieving men and women, and he already has prepared also many other day of judgment signs. So this is the promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is conveying to the kafir and also to us. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues on with the last ayah, Inna hadihi tazkirah, that indeed this is a reminder, فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا, and then whoever takes this as a reminder should surely follow his Lord, the way of his Lord. So at the beginning, when the Prophet ﷺ got the revelation for Surah Al-Muzzammil, he only had ayahs 1 through 19. So when they would read their salah, it would only be 1 through 19, and they would end here. But later on, the Prophet ﷺ got revelation of ayah number 20, which is the longest ayah in the surah, and which shortens the Prophet ﷺ's burden in the salah. So the first part of the surah, ayahs 1 through 19, is a Makki part of the surah, and ayah number 20, the last part of the surah, is a Madani surah. Okay, so let's move on to the last ayah. Inna rabbaka ya'lamu annaka taqumu adna. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, he says, and indeed your Lord knows that you stand at the night, or adna, less than 2/3 of the night, adna min thuluthay al-layl wa nisfa, or half of it, or wa thulutha, and a third of it, wa ta'ifa, and you should do it in groups with those next to you, with those who are with you. Wallahu yuqaddiru al-layla wan-nahar, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala measures precisely the measurements of the day and the night, or the night and the day, al-layl wan-nahar. Alima an lan tuhsuhu fataba alaykum, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that he knows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows for those who do not worship, so he has turned to you. فَقْرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ, so that you should recite the Quran in whatever is easy for you. So at this time, the Prophet ﷺ has got many more revelations, almost the whole Quran, but not the whole Quran yet. But he has had many more revelations. So the Prophet ﷺ is being assured, read whatever you can. And at this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shortens, because the Prophet ﷺ had to do tahajjud prayers as fard for 12 months until this ayah was revealed. And so this ayah specifically mentions that he is allowed to do the Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha salahs now for fard, and you can leave the tahajjud prayers as sunan. So this is the ayah that helps the Prophet ﷺ lessen the burden. Alima an sayakunu minkum marda, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that there will be some of you that are sick. Wa akharuna yadribuna fil ard, and there are going to be some people who will be traveling the land. Yabtaghuna min fadlillah, to see the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa akharuna yuqatiluna fi sabilillah, and there are other people who are doing jihad in the name of Allah, who are fighting in the name of Allah. Yuqatiluna fi sabilillah. فَقْرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْهُ, so read whatever is easy for you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ, and we see this multiple times throughout the Quran, that establish your prayers and give the fard zakat, وَأَقْرَضُوا اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا, and that you should loan Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a goodly loan, or a big loan. and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will notice. And whatever وَمَا تُقَدِّمُوا is sent forth with you لِأَنفُسِكُم مِّن خَيْرٍ تَجِدُوهُ, that whatever you find yourselves good, you will find تَجِدُوهُ, you will find it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you do something good, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says هُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكَ هُوَ خَيْرًا وَأَعْظَمَ أَجْرًا, that you will be better off with this and you will have a greater reward. وَأَعْظَمَ أَجْرًا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ, and seek forgiveness of Allah. Inna Allah ghafurur rahim, and indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the forgiving and the most merciful. Jazakallahu khairan. Now inshallah Abdullah can launch the polls, and then Abdullah will go on and recite Surah Al-Muzzammil.
Jazakallah khair, Abdurrahman, for giving this beautiful lecture on Surah Al-Muzzammil, the 74th chapter of the Quran. So inshallah, while you guys are answering the polls, inshallah, I will recite the Surah Al-Muzzammil. And inshallah, right after I finish, Abdurrahman will be going over the polls with you guys. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا إن لك في النهار سبحا طويلا واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا واصبر على ما يقولون واهجرهم هجرا جميلا وذرني والمكذبين أولي النعمة ومهلهم قليلا إن لدينا أنكالا وجحيما وطعاما ذا غصة وعذابا أليما يوم ترجف الأرض والجبال وكانت الجبال كثيبا مهيلا إنا أرسلنا إليكم رسولا شاهدا عليكم كما أرسلنا إلى فرعون رسولا فعصى فرعون الرسول فأخذناه أخذا وبيلا فكيف تتقون إن كفرتم يوما يجعل الولدان شيبا السماء منفطر به كان وعده مفعولا إن هذه تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه وطائفة من الذين معك والله يقدر الليل والنهار علم أن لن تحصوه فتاب عليكم فاقرؤوا ما تيسر من القرآن علم أن سيكون منكم مرضى وآخرون يضربون في الأرض يبتغون من فضل الله وآخرون يقاتلون في سبيل الله فقرؤوا ما تيسر منه وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا وما تقدموا لأنفسكم من خير تجدوه عند الله هو خيرا وأعظم أجرا واستغفروا الله إن الله غفور رحيم.
Jazakallah khairan, Abdullah, for the wonderful recitation. Now, inshallah, no one has answered any of the questions of the polls. So, inshallah, I'll just go over the answers, inshallah. So, question number 1 says, what does Surah Muzammil mean? The scared fellow, the wrapped one, the day of Muzammil, the human, or none of the above? Okay. So in this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that Muzzammil is the wrapped one, the one with comfort, but it's not the scared fellow. That would probably be a Muddathir. That would be an answer choice for Muddathir, but not for Muzzammil. Question number 2. How many sections are Surah Muzzammil and why? So there are 3 sections and 2 are revealed in Mecca and 1 is revealed in Medina. There's 1 section and it's Mecca. There are 2 sections and 1 is revealed in Mecca, the other in Medina. There are 20 sections since there's 20 ayahs. So the correct answer choice is 2 sections. 1 is revealed in Mecca, one is in Medina. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned specifically that there is 2 sections, 1 through 19 is the first section, which is Mecca, and ayah number 20 itself is the other section, which is revealed in Medina. Who does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically talk to in the beginning? The believers, the Prophet ﷺ, the tyrants of Islam or kafir, or the general people, everyone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking directly to the Prophet ﷺ. He says, Ya ayyuhal muzzammil, or you, the one who covered himself. So it is the Prophet ﷺ. And number 4, what are the two of the Day of Judgment signs mentioned in Surah Al-Muzzammil? So children with gray hair and the sun will collapse. The sky will break and the earth will spew all of its components. The sky will collapse and children will have gray hair. The sky will break and people will rise from the grave. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that the correct answer choice is the sky will collapse and children will be having gray hair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, As-sama'u munfatirun bih, that the sky will be broken. And then he also says, فَكَيْفَ تَتَّقُونَ إِن كَفَرْتُمْ يَوْمَ يَجْعَلُ الْوِلْدَانَ شِيبًا, that how can you protect yourself on that day, kafirs, on that day when even children will be having gray hair. So Jazakallah khairan everyone for attending the polls. I'll end it and then share the results. Abdullah, is there anything that you want to say as of right now?
Inshallah, I think so. Inshallah, please remember to join next time, inshallah, for the next 99 name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the next surah, inshallah, the 72nd surah of the Quran, Surah Al-Jinn. So now, inshallah, I will do the concluding dua. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك ونتوب إليك أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وآخر دعواكم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته وعليكم أجمعين. الله الله الله